It was asked recently of me what my favorite Chinese cold weapon that we have been looking into would be my go-to for a zombie apocalypse if something were to happen. And since it is Halloween, I decided, why not go into that right now? So when thinking about choosing a weapon for a zombie apocalypse, there's a couple of factors that we all have to keep in mind. There's lots of different choices, right? You have machetes, you have household tools, stakes, spears, all kinds of crazy stuff and stuff that you could make yourself and all of that. We're not going to go into the firearms or the actual fire or any of that kind of stuff. We're just doing cold weapons, things that don't need to be reloaded, things that you want to have on hand so that you can always defend yourself even if you run out of ammo. Choosing a weapon for a zombie apocalypse. First of all, you have 4 different types of zombies that I'm talking about in this particular thing. First of all, you have the shamblers, which are just the Romero-style, slow, stupid zombies who are just kind of brain dead and walking eating machines. Okay, so that's our conventional zombie. If that happens, right, that's what they're. A lot of times they have to be dispatched by destroying the brain or whatever, but we'll get into that in a second. So then you got your next category of zombies that we've become familiar with, which is the crazed zombies or the fast zombies, the ones that will run after you. They're still stupid. They're still completely obsessed, or their brains are completely taken over with consumption and eating and all that. So if they see you, they're going to just run at you and eat you. They don't really have a whole lot of planning, a lot of coordination, anything like that. But if enough of them get together and enough of them are robust enough, they could turn into the next category, which is a swarm. Big swarm of zombies like we saw in World War Z, where they're running into buses and pushing them over and scaling walls and climbing on top of each other, complete disregard for safety and injury and all of that because, well, they're dead. They don't need to worry about that anymore. And then you've got the last category, which I'm going to talk about, which are the crafty zombies. This is like the zombies that retain their intelligence after their reanimation. They can think, they can speak, they can strategize, they can trick you, they can do all kinds of things.
Come in dispatch. Send more paramedics.
Things like this, like the White Walkers in Game of Thrones, or the zombies in Return of the Living Dead. So these are the basic categories of Walking Dead that I'm going to be talking about. You've also got the different ways to dispatch, right? Some of them will take a shot to the head, and that's all it takes. Some of them just need conventional injury. So things like in 28 Days Later, where it's just infected people, they're just living human beings that will die from conventional injuries given to a living human being. There's the complete dismemberment. Right? You have to dismember the corpse into little pieces so it doesn't come after you. And then, of course, there's the final, you need to completely immolate and destroy the body that is being reanimated. Obviously, that's not going to come too much into our play, but anyway. So, we're thinking about these categories, and we're thinking about the different types of things. Another thing that happens in a zombie apocalypse is resources are going to be very, very scarce. So we want to find something that is economical, easy to find, or easy to make, easy to replace, easy to maintain, all of that kind of thing, without a minimum of fuss. Okay, before we get more into the weapons, I want to give out an honorable mention. This is something that we just started to see in zombie movies and media just recently, but I want to put it in there. The most important thing that you should be looking for if a zombie apocalypse starts is armor. Right? If you are one of us, you probably have a fencing jacket or something like this, a nice thick gambeson, right? Pull that sucker out. get your gloves out, get your helmet, right? If you don't have any of that stuff, run out to your local sporting goods store and grab some lacrosse armor, some nice thick padding, right? Something that can cover up the areas that can get bitten or scratched, lead to an infection and all of that kind of thing. That is the number one thing that could save so many people. Even if you don't even have a weapon, if you are nice and fully armored, the undead are not going to be able to do too much to you. Unless, of course, you're going up against the crafty ones like the White Walkers or the Return of the Living Dead guys. But still, having a little bit of armor is going to be better than having none at all. The weapon that we choose has to be economical, has to be easy to carry, be versatile in the fact that it can do something from a long way away, but can still protect us in close. So we start thinking about these things. The first thing that comes to mind are swords, axes, that kind of thing. The problem with those is, A, they're difficult to make. They require a lot of material, a lot of metal, a lot of steel, a lot of workmanship. When they break, they're less useful. So there's that. And they don't really have a whole lot of reach. Even a long sword doesn't really have a terrible amount of reach. At least not something that can keep us safe from the hordes of the undead. Then you get into something like a pole arm. Something like this, a guandao or a pudao, something like that, something with a nice big heavy blade out here, a nice long handle, and of course we've got the spear tip here so that we can brain the zombie cusses when we get them down on the ground or something like that. Now, of course, the problem with this, even though we do get our reach, and it can be used in closer quarters, this guy is heavy, right? Pudao are a little bit less so, and those basically are just the blade, just a nice simple blade that you can put any type of stick on. So that's a very useful kind of thing. But it is a cutting instrument. You can make them thrustable, of course, and you're going to get the reach and all that. So next up is the spear. The spear is a good choice. It is lighter, it is quicker, right? You can stab from far away. If they get in close, you can still sort of use it here. Obviously, there's different lengths to this. Spears can be made very, very long, so you can stay out of range very well. So these are definitely a good choice. Problem is, if the shaft breaks, usually the spearhead's not as useful. It's still useful as a kind of stabbing tool or whatever when you get in close, but it doesn't have a whole lot. Depending on the spearhead, if you get a longer spearhead, it will have some cutting ability, but generally speaking, cutting ability is a little bit reduced when this. Now, cutting ability is not necessarily as useful with zombies as with living human beings, but there you go. So the spear is still definitely a good choice. It's something there. The benefits of it, obviously, not a whole lot of metal, right? Easily created. You can find sticks everywhere. You can fashion a spear of different lengths and all of that. The drawback is that it's not quite as versatile as some other things. Okay, so what is the weapon that I am choosing as my go-to, as the zombie tool number one for me? It is this. The Han Dynasty G. Now, I have here just the blade. I'm getting a few more in or whatever. This particular instrument right here is a Chinese instrument from the Han Dynasty. So this is about 2,000 years old. It has a long cutting edge right here. It has a nice spike and a kind of knife blade right there. The knife blade up here is also very good. This one is very sharp. I am going to be mounting this in various lengths here. This one is going on a 6-foot pole. Okay, so we have this all nice and safely sheathed, so we can examine this thing. This space right here will be occupied by a stick. Oftentimes, it will be on a pole about this long. And if I see here, this is how it will kind of sit on that pole. Here's this. The ones that go on these poles are generally a little bit smaller, and there's a huge variety in sizes and shapes, and you can really purpose make this particular shape into almost anything you want. So that's the first kind of thing. Now this obviously gives us the range of a spear, but it also gives us some cutting power of an axe or a blade or something like that. Now the next way that you can mount this is on a stick about this size. A shorter stick, such like this. Right? Now, you can make this even shorter still. So you can have it so it's only about that long or so. But this allows you to get into closer quarters, right? Be able to go back and forth. And also, if your long shaft breaks, this is a easily improvised solution, right? It's still not useless. You can still use the rest of this shaft, and this guy becomes more like an axe or a pickaxe. So you've got like basically an axe on one side, a pickaxe on the other, and a spear on the front. So very, very nice in that way. The third way, let's say this goes bad. That one breaks, something like that. You can also use it like this, right? Just as a handheld weapon. You simply wrap this bottom part of the blade so it doesn't cut you in a leather or any type of thing, and you use that as a hilt. You can even have some of that blade hanging out so that you can do some cutting, but you really wouldn't need to. Now, using it like this, you can see all the various different ways and then just kind of extrapolate what they'll do when they're on a longer lever. So if we kind of go through that, we've got, first of all, we have the stabber, right? This front guy right here is, and if we use our, bring a zombie in here, right? We're going to use this stabber right here. You can stab there. Obviously, stabbing to the head is where you want to go, right? You want to be able to stab there. You can stab horizontally. You can stab vertically. You can stab with that up. You can stab with it down. All of that. Now, the next one, this guy right here, obviously chops to the head, right? And I can take this off because that's kind of safe, right? Here. So, chop to the head. You can easily brain your zombie like that. And notice how short this is. If it's on a longer pole, that's even better, right? You can get this shot is pretty easy to get even from a long way away. So you've got that. Okay, so those are the two kind of pokey bits. Now, all of these edges, right? You've got this edge here, these two edges here, and this edge here, right? They can all be used. I can thrust forward for cuts, right? Dismemberment, that kind of thing. This is long enough to sever a limb, right? Limbs go through that. If they are zombies that are more like 28 days later, obviously this is going to come in very, very handy. So you've got that. Now, you've got this cut here, these cuts here, just like a regular knife. This right here, if you wanted to, you could probably use it that way. But the other way is using this hook right here, or this little wedge here. I can bring it in to the neck, all of that, and maybe behead the zombie, maybe take off a limb. If something's reaching through a window, you can take it, just saw it off or something like that. So there, it's got a very versatile range of techniques that we can use to protect ourselves from the walking corpse that happens to get through our defenses. Also, because they're so easily produced, you can make a whole lot of them, and you can have various ones of these in various lengths and configurations to suit your needs. They are also, as evidenced by their use in the Han Dynasty, extremely good in conventional warfare against other humans. Your fellow survivors may not be friendly to you. So remember, it's not just the living dead that you have to worry about in a zombie apocalypse, it's also the living. So, having something like this, which is a tried and true, proven weapon throughout history, is going to be good on your side anyway. But as far as your melee weapon, I recommend the Hanji here. This one, as made by LK Chen. I believe that's one of the only, if not the only place that we can get this particular weapon right now. This is basically, in my mind, the zombie killer extraordinaire. You got the stabby bits, you got the cutty bits, you got the hooking, you got this, all that stuff. When this is on a pole, you can use this to even move things around, right? You can hook people in there and push them over there. Not people, zombies, that kind of thing, right? But this right here, a simple shape, a simple design, but that's what you need when the chips are down and the dead walk the earth. So be prepared. Get yourself a Hanji, or start looking into them. So, until next time, patience, practice, perseverance. Happy sabering.